Hey everyone, and welcome to the October subscription tasting video, where I'm tasting the 3 coffees we're sending out on the 1st of October this month. So the first Wednesday of the month we always send out the coffees. Our subscription works a little bit like this. I choose the coffees every month. Normally we choose some coffees that I really like at the moment, or maybe some small lots that we only bought for subscription, or maybe some of our classic coffees. We send out 3 different coffees normally, and you can subscribe from 1 to 6 bags. If you subscribe to 6 bags, you get 2 bags of each coffee. If you subscribe to 3 bags, you get 1 of each. And if you subscribe to 2 bags, you get the first and the second coffee. That's how it works. You can go to the website, sign up, you can pause, change, or stop the subscription at any time. And we do have subscribers all around the world, so we do ship around the world. Cool! This month, finally, the Ethiopian coffees have arrived. I've been waiting so long. I know they're harvested in December last year, but it takes a while for them to dry. Then it takes a while for us to get samples, and then it takes a while for the coffees to get driven to Addis. Then it takes a while for it to get milled. Then we have to wait for the ship. The ship, has to go around Africa now because they don't go through the Suez Canal. And sometimes they decide to leave the container in Jeddah, in the port there, for a month, which they did this year. And then the container came to Europe. They decided to leave it in Malta for a month. And then they decided to bring it to Germany, and then it was there for 2 weeks, and then it came to Norway. Whew. Shipping sometimes can be very, very difficult and very, very frustrating. And believe me, I'm tracking the container every day. I'm talking with the shipping line all the time. But there's only that much you can do when you're a small company like us, where we ship 1 container from Ethiopia every year. So to say the least, we're not the top priority for people. Nevertheless, the coffees have arrived. Unfortunately, one of the lots were a little baggy. Fortunately, it was a very, very small lot, only 10 bags. It was actually our naturals, so there will probably be no naturals this year. I'm going to double check because we have 2 natural lots, so I'm going to double check the other lot to see if we're able to sell that. But if not, we will not be able to release that this year. But we have some very, very nice washed coffees, and they stayed fresh like expected, probably because they're a little bit easier to dry. So I know that, for instance, at Tatmara, where he produces natural, it rains a lot during harvest, so it's difficult to dry the coffee consistently. So even though we are storing the coffees in grain pro bags, we're shipping in vacuum packs and everything, things can happen to coffee. It's a natural product. So it's not like you buy the coffee and it stays fresh forever. Sometimes it gets old, and it's a sad thing, but all I can do is to dream about it and taste the pre-shipment sample that I have in my fridge here in the lab and cry a little bit that the coffee arrived a little baggy. Cool. Now I've selected 3 different coffees. 2 of them are from the same farm, the same cultivar, just different process. And those are the first 2 coffees. It's coffees from Echemo, the farm of Khalid Shifa. It's very close to Agaro in the southwestern Ethiopia. And his farm is, I think he's the 3rd generation coffee farmer now. The farm was established by his grandfather. The trees were planted from seeds from the forest. And they have never pruned or cut or done anything to the trees. So when you walk in this farm, you walk literally underneath the trees. And the coffee is a little bit more kind of delicate, I would say, than the typical Negussie coffees, the typical Guji coffees. Although he has good altitude, it's like 2,000 meters above sea level. His processing now is really, really good, and according to a protocol we have agreed on. He is storing the coffee in grain pro at farm level. We're taking samples of daily pickings. We're mixing the best pickings together to create a lot. And then we're vacuum packing the coffee. And so we've done a lot of work with Khalid to make sure that the coffee is much, much better and much, much cleaner. So for the last 2 years, I've been really happy with this coffee. This year, he decided to do a little experiment. So normally in Ethiopia, when they wash the coffee, they normally ferment the coffee in the tanks underneath water. So that means you depulp the coffee cherries, and then you leave the parchment coffee that still has mucilage layer on. You leave it in the tank and you fill that tank with water. So the coffee is kind of fermenting underwater for up to 70 hours. And then that's kind of the typical profile you'll find in Ethiopia. I don't know why they do this, but for instance, in Kenya, they do it without water. So I think it's just a tradition. So Khalid decided to do it 1 lot with water and then another lot without water, so you can taste the difference. And dry fermentation normally is a little bit faster. It can be, if it's hot, it can be a little bit harder to control. Of course, at 2,000 meters above sea level, it's not very hot, so it's pretty easy to control. But it does create subtle differences in the coffee, and I thought it would be very interesting to send that out to our subscribers so you can taste the difference between a wet fermented coffee and a dry fermented coffee. The same cultivar, same farm, same everything, except fermenting with water or without water. Okay, so let's taste the first one, which is the dry fermented one. And we're sending this out as the first coffee because it's a little bit more pronounced, I would say, more fruity and very easy to like. Yeah, it's a bit more open now, I would say, than the fully submerged fermentation. Let's taste. Oh yes, typical Ethiopian coffee, a lot of this kind of bergamot flavor. Tastes like tea, tastes floral like jasmine. Very nice. And I would say maybe a little bit more pronounced than if you've tried the coffee from Echemo before. It's maybe a little bit more pronounced in the fruit section. So a little bit more kind of stone fruit, some kind of citrus peel and florality. Acidity level, I would say medium to medium high. Quite fruity and juicy coffee, and has a very nice finish of bergamot, which, if you don't know what bergamot is, it's a citrus fruit that they use to flavor Earl Grey tea. So if you know the flavor of Earl Grey tea, that's bergamot flavor. The tea is flavored, the coffee is not flavored. This is the natural flavor of the coffee. So you might say that the coffee tastes like tea. I normally say the tea tastes like coffee. Okay, so the first coffee is the dry fermented heirloom cultivar from Echemo. We call it heirloom because it's kind of Ethiopian landrace. We don't really know what it is. We haven't tested it genetically. It's not one of the 74-110, 74-112. It's not one of those cultivars from Ethiopia. This is like his grandfather literally went to the forest, picked cherries, took the seeds and planted, and that's the farm. So pretty unique coffee, I would say. And Khalid has been preserving this farm and also planting more shade to kind of give more like life back into the farm. Okay, let's taste the second one, which is from the same farm, but this coffee has been fermented underwater. So when you have the coffee in the cement tank, you just fill it up with water and the coffee lays underneath water. So it's kind of a reduced oxygen environment, I would say. But you know, fermentation is kind of an anaerobic process anyway. But it gives the coffee a little bit different flavor profile. Let's taste. Oh yes, it's very different. I mean, okay, if it's the first time you taste coffee, you will probably just say they both taste the same. They taste like coffee. But when you compare them side by side, they're definitely different. This is more of a kind of lemony citrus flavor. Acidity is high, I would say, compared to the dry fermented. And I would say the coffee tastes a little bit cleaner, more delicate. Has a little note of florality, but it's kind of more like a jasmine flower, whereas the first one is maybe more like an orange blossom. And it's a bit more delicate and tea-like, I would say, this coffee. I just find it super interesting that the same coffee fermented in two different ways can taste so different. I mean, I'm not surprised. I've been working in coffee for a long time, so I know that fermentation plays a role in the flavor of the coffee. But how it can, when it's controlled like this, when it's not like overpowering fermentation like you can expect from naturals or these kind of co-ferments or whatever that's very popular these days. These are both washed coffees. The fermentation is very controlled, not too long, but it kind of brings out different characters to the coffee. So if I have a favorite, not really. I think they're both very interesting. The dry fermented for me feels more open and aromatic and kind of more perfumey. And Wet-fermented is more like has a very, very smooth texture, very clean, more elegant, delicate coffee. And it's kind of more in line with what I expect to get from Echemo, very kind of light white tea kind of flavor, delicate coffee. Yeah, interesting indeed. So the first one we're sending out, dry fermented coffee from Echemo. The second one, wet fermented coffee from Echemo. Not a huge difference, but a good, nice lecture if you're interested in fermentation. All right, so the third coffee we're sending out, it's from a different farm. It's from, for me, maybe one of the most beautiful farms I've ever been to. It's Tatmara in close to Bonga, a little bit further south from where Echemo is located. So you kind of, Echemo is close to Agaro. Normally we fly to Jimma, we drive a little bit northwest to Echemo, and then we drive back to Jimma and then southwest to Bonga and Kaffa, where some people say is the original birthplace of coffee. I think the whole Africa is the birthplace of coffee, but you have different species everywhere. So maybe Arabica is from Ethiopia, Sudan, Kenya. We don't really know like where it started, but in those forests. But Kaffa has been kind of historically considered the place where coffee kind of, or at least coffee consumption started. Tatmara is a quite new farm. Negussie, who is the farmer, he actually was born and raised on these lands. And he came back after working many years in Addis, and he leased the land, because you can't own land in Ethiopia, and decided to plant coffee inside the forest. So it's literally a forest. Of course, over the years, people who live around have been into the forest to cut down trees for firewood, for instance. But in recent years, when Negussie has taken over the farm, he's replanting trees to give more shade. He's planting coffee in the kind of bottom. And the only practices both of these farmers do is they cut weeds manually. They don't spray anything, they don't fertilize anything. They don't do anything other than cutting weeds and growing coffee. So Echemo is organically certified. Tatmara is not certified. And that's just by choice. I mean, the coffee doesn't become more organic if you certify it. So in the first years we bought from Tatmara, he was only producing natural processed coffees, but because it's raining a lot during harvest there, we've had years where the natural didn't arrive well, we still bought it, and we had to sell it cheap as our test roast. And so we figured some years ago that we would collect some money on our anniversary in the coffee shop, and we would use that money to send to Negussie to build a wet mill. So now he has a wet mill where he can produce washed coffees. I think this is our second season with washed coffees from Tatmara. And they're tasting really, really nice. Maybe this year a little bit more subtle. Let's see, let's see. I take that back. It's not more subtle. Ooh, very stone fruity, very floral. Ooh, really aromatic coffee. Lots of stone fruit flavor. Yeah, stone fruit, very nice acidity, quite juicy coffee. The florality is there, but it's kind of a little bit more integrated than with the first coffee here, I think. This is a cultivar named with the sexy name of 74140. And it's one of the improved varieties from the Jimma Agricultural Research Station that they are releasing from there. So, of course, Tatmara is a quite new established plantation, so most of the cultivars Negussie is growing are these kind of new and improved varieties, they call it. 74110, 74112, and 74140. He also planted some whoosh whoosh, but it's not doing so well there because the altitude is too high. It's like 2,100 meters, I think. And it's inside a forest, so there's not a lot of sunlight. There's a lot of weeds growing. So the biggest battle that Negussie has is, of course, to have enough labor to cut weeds. And also, he has a lot of baboons in the forest. They come and eat the cherries. So that's his biggest pest in the coffee farm. It's actually some beautiful baboons that are teasing him quite a lot because when he scares them away, they just go around the farm and come back the other way. So it's a pretty nice place. Negussie grows cardamom, long pepper. There's all these kind of wild herbs and stuff growing in the farm. Lots of animals there. It's the most beautiful place. And inside that little forest, he has some coffee trees And he could produce more if he only had enough manpower. Because Bonga is not the most densely populated place in Ethiopia. And a lot of the people who live around, they have their own farms. So they don't really have time to work on his farm all the time. So it can be a struggle, and it's one of the issues that we're seeing more and more in coffee farming, actually. Cool, so let me repeat. The third coffee is a 74140. That's the cultivar, very sexy name. And it's from Tatmara in, Dakiti, where it's close to Bonga, so it's like a 20-minute drive from Bonga in Kaffa in Ethiopia. Wow. We didn't buy a lot of coffee from Tatmara this year, not because we don't want to, just because he doesn't produce a lot. And we're also sharing this coffee with Terre de Café in Paris, because we went in on this wet mill project together. So we kind of have to share brotherly among us the coffees that Negussie is producing. But I have to say, I'm really happy the coffees finally arrived. They're tasting amazing now. They're really open and nice. So yeah, I hope you enjoy these coffees as much as I do. And until next time, I hope you enjoyed this video as well. If you want more info about Tatmara, you can check out, we made a podcast, I think last December or something, that we published. So you can hear my interview with Negussie. Very, very interesting story where you can learn about how he established the farm and everything, and his struggles and everything. So when you drink these coffees, I highly recommend listening to that podcast. Until then, I hope to see you next time as well, and I hope you enjoy these coffees.